whole table, the friends of friends and the friends, everyone is seeing the situation play out right in front of their eyes, where Boniswa's card has declined. Embarrassment that so one day my electricity got cut off. It got cut off, I think it was like 2 days before payday. And my electricity got cut off because I wasn't paying for electricity, because that rental amount I was paying in Pretoria, it wasn't inclusive of electricity. So I still had to pay for electricity separately, and I hadn't been paying for it for about 3 months, and it got cut off. And when you're at the mall on payday, best believe you're going to buy some skincare products that you do not necessarily need. You are going to buy some clothes that you probably don't afford. All the disciplines and because that's when I was then able to build at home, which is something that I wanted to do for a very long time. That I was living below your means is a form of self-love. Dumelang Abshenson Manan Molweni, and welcome to my corner of the internet. This is episode 6 of our wonderful series titled Reinvent Yourself, wherein I'm essentially just sharing my life and my journey so far in hopes that you and I are going to get familiar with each other, are going to be acquainted with each other, and we journey towards being a progressive community. This channel is called In Conversation with Boniswa Moto, and there are going to be so many more conversations to come. Just subscribe, just stick along, just be a part of the community. I'd love that, and I'd appreciate that very much. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I delve into one of the most sensitive subjects people fear talking about, and that is the subject of finances. Money. As I tell you the story of my financial wake-up call and how that pushed me and nudged me towards financial discipline. So a couple of days ago, I shared the story on my WhatsApp and my Instagram stories, where I was telling people that this one day back in 2019, I went out with my girlfriends. We went out for drinks. It was a cutesy date with the girls, you know. We had a lovely time chatting up and just catching up with the girls. And we had the drinks, we had some nibbles, I assume. The daytime drinks turned into nighttime drinks, and we paid and settled the bill for the daytime drinks, and then we moved to second location. And we get to second location, the drinks are flowing, the conversation is good, a whole lot of good vibes, you know. You can imagine 2019 kind of good vibes. At the end of the night, when we're done with the nighttime drinks, now the bill came along, and of course we split it all amongst us. I think we split it equally amongst us. The waiter came along as he was just going around the table, just for each person to pay for their portion of the bill. He came towards me, and of course I tapped or inserted my card, I can't remember, had to punch in my PIN code. He said that the card was declining. I think I tried again. I don't even know why I did that, because you know what? There were no funds in the card. I had exhausted my funds, and it was quite an embarrassing moment. You can imagine we're all sitting around the table as the girls. You know, obviously when you are a group of girls, you are more close to some people than the other. You know, the other people are friends of friends. But now the whole table, the friends of friends and the friends, everyone is seeing the situation play out right in front of their eyes, where Boniswa's card has declined. So what must happen now? One of the friends obviously patched me up, and I had to pay her at a later stage. But you know what's worse about that situation? The fact that my card, that was worse. But what's even worse was the fact that the card that was declining was my credit card. So I was already using credit to have a good time. I was already using credit for things that were not necessary expenses, that were not, you know, pressing, things that were not a requirement. I was using my credit card, and it declined because I had already exhausted even the funds that were lent to me by the bank, even the credit that was extended to me. So as you can imagine, that was a lot of embarrassment, and to a 24-year-old who thought she was living the life at the time, it was quite hard-hitting. And that was one of my many financial wake-up calls. And this is all bringing me to giving you a little bit of context as to what was happening in my life at the time financially. In previous episodes, I've talked about how when I first joined corporate, I started out on a 6-month contract. I did this contract, got through the 6 months, and then I got another contract. It got renewed rather. The contract got renewed for another 6 months. And again, at the end of the second 6 months, it got renewed again for the third time. And at the end of the third contract, I then got a permanent role within the same organization. And now when I got the permanent role, it did bump up my salary. I think with about just less than 100,000 cost to company. But now here's the deal. Because I was on contract, the only deductions I had were tax and I think UIF. Those were the only 2 deductions. But now because I was becoming a permanent employee, there were a lot more things that needed to be deducted from my salary. Tax being obviously the standard one, UIF still very minimal amount, okay, fine. Medical aid, because now I'm a permanent employee, I'm required to be on medical aid. So as you know, medical aid in South Africa is not cheap. So I'm paying for medical aid and I'm paying for pension fund. I have to pay for pension fund. So that's another big chunk of my salary being deducted. I was earning less as a permanent employee than I was as a contractor, because I think it was less by almost 1,000 rand less. My take home was less than the initial take home, than the contract take home, because on contract didn't have to pay for medical aid, didn't have to pay for pension fund, but now as an employee, as a permanent employee, I'm required to pay for those things. And then now I am taking home 1,000 less than I did before. In addition to that, when I was on contract, I lived in Johannesburg and I worked in Joburg. But my permanent position was in Pretoria. And when I moved to Pretoria, I had to get a place to stay and pay rent. And the rental amount I was paying in Pretoria was close to 6,000 Rand in 2019. And in Johannesburg, I was renting as well in Joburg, but I was paying, I think it was 3,800, around that figure, because I was renting a 2-bedroom. I was sharing a 2-bedroom flat with someone else, and so the rent was significantly lower than the loft I was paying for in Pretoria, where I was staying all by myself and I was paying close to 6 grand. And so now you can see I'm already 1,000 Rand down on my take home. And my expenses have gone up significantly, because the difference between 3,500 and 6,000 is a lot. So yeah, I am, quite stretched financially regarding those things. And obviously my standard expenses are still there. I'm still paying about 4,000 Rand for my car. I'm still paying about, I think at the time it was 1,700 for my car insurance. I'm paying for my phone. I can't remember how much I was paying for my phone. I've got all these amounts in front of me just so that I don't get things twisted up. But yeah, I am still also sending money home. And that remains one of my big line items, my financial line items. Sending money home is one of my biggest line items to this date. And I obviously do that with the most open of hearts. I love that because I don't even consider it black tax. People call it black tax. I don't consider it that, because I remember having actually a discussion with a financial planner at some point, and she was questioning me on this line item of this money that I sent home. And I said to her, listen, the reason I was sent to school I went to university, it was so that I can take care of home. And it's embedded in me. I can't think that taking care of home is some sort of tax. So nonetheless, that's just me derailing a little bit. But yeah, that was one of my expenses. And now it's petrol again for my car. And the petrol that I would have to put in my car was quite a lot, because I live in Pretoria, because my job is in Pretoria. My 9-to-5 job, my Monday to Friday job is in Pretoria. However, I still have my freelance job at the SABC, where I go every Sunday to the SABC And this means that I'm driving from Pretoria to Auckland Park in Johannesburg every Sunday. So that's quite a lot of petrol, and you know how expensive fuel can be. And in addition to that, I still have to buy groceries. I still have to eat at work. I still have to buy clothes to go to the office, because when you're going to the office, you have to look a certain way and look presentable. I have to do my hair. I have to buy toiletries. It's just a lot. I have to have lunch at work. I don't know if I've mentioned that already. And so this means that I was quite financially stretched. However, I don't want to just end it there. I was financially stretched and I was ill-disciplined when it comes to money. I was financially ill-disciplined. And you know why I say this? On payday, when the money clocks in, instead of waiting for all my expenses to be covered first and maybe put some little bit of money into savings, no, you know what I do? I go to the mall. And when you're at the mall on payday, best believe you're going to buy some skincare products that you do not necessarily need. You are going to buy some clothes that you probably don't afford. You are going to spend on things that are not a priority at that point. Instead of just waiting to spend on those things what remains of your salary. No, I start with those things first, and then by the time that I have to pay for the things that are important, by the time that my debit orders have to go off, I'm already just like sitting on the edge of some sort. So you know, that was the ill discipline that I think I suffered a lot. And you know, when the Bible says that when you can be trusted with small things, you will be trusted with even bigger and better things. It is truly that. And it required that period of my life required me to do a lot of work, because in as much as I felt that I was not earning the amount of money I'd like to earn at that time, but I had to first get some sort of financial discipline before I could, you know, balloon up, have my salary ballooned up, or, you know, before I jump into a higher salary. I had to get the financial discipline right, because you have to fix the leaks before you fill up the bucket. You have to, correcting your worst habit will do so much for you more than stacking up any other good habit, because you have to first close the leak before you fill up the bucket. Because if you think you're just going to pour water into this bucket that is leaking, you will never fill it up, because it's just constantly leaking. And I think that was my situation. I had no financial discipline whatsoever. So however much money I would be making, because if you think about it, I was earning this money and it was covering my expenses, and I would have a surplus if I was financially disciplined. And on top of that, I had the freelance work. I still have the freelance work at the SABC, which also added more money. But I was living from hand to mouth every single month. My turning point was in 2020. And the first time I experienced to have money in your account until very close to payday for the first time in 2020, when we were in lockdown. That was the first time I was like, oh, so once I've paid everything that I have to pay, once I've sent money to all the places that I have to send it to, I can still have a surplus. That was the first time I experienced that. And that was because it was lockdown. And I think it's one of the reasons why I always say that 2020 for me was such a good turning point in my life, because now I was able to sit with myself and sit with my finances and really realize that my money is more than enough to cover my needs and to cover my wants as well. Just if I am financially disciplined, it's going to cover me very well. I'm going to be fine. I'm comfortable. I can live a comfortable life. Because one thing about being financially stretched, you will have so much stress. You will be under so much distress. Not being able to cover your needs and living hand to mouth causes a lot of distress. I need not to tell people that, but hear it from me. My mental health was taking such a toll, because now I'm living hand to mouth. But I didn't have to go through that distress. I didn't have to suffer mentally like that, because I had more than enough money to cover for my needs and my wants, just that I lacked financial discipline. I lacked financial discipline in the most insane way. And yeah, then 2020 happens, and I say that in 2020 it was a turning point for me because now we were in heavy lockdown. So this meant that, first of all, no random and spontaneous lunches with girlfriends and friends. No one is just gonna call you up or text you and say, let's have lunch on this day. Because trust and believe, those lunches, that 300 here, that 400 there, that 200 there, that money, it piles up into quite a significant amount of money that you spend on a monthly basis just going to restaurants because you're catching up with girlfriends. So that was one. There was none of that now because we're in lockdown. Two, there was no spontaneous, let's go for after work drinks. Gosh, when I think about those times, because there's gonna be, let's go for drinks after work, and that time when in your account you're left with 575 rand, and then these drinks after work are gonna cost you like 350 rand, and you have to still use this money to pour petrol in your car. You still have to top up your groceries, and now you're left with 200 rand, 225 rand in your account just because someone said, let's go out for drinks after work. And so there was none of that during COVID, which was great. This meant that I had a little bit of money going into my reserves in my account. And then also, we were not going to the office at all. So this meant that I didn't have to worry about constantly getting clothes for work, constantly wanting to, come to work with a new clothing item. I didn't have to stress about that. I didn't have to stress about lunch at work, because best believe, lunch at those corporates can be very expensive. I know some people work for companies where lunch is subsidized or something like that. I didn't work for a company like that. You were buying, and they would have a restaurant that charges restaurant prices for food. So you were spending on average 75 rand for lunch at work, and that's 75 rand per day. That's a lot of money. And so that was cut out, and it worked for me. And also just, understanding that, okay, now it was just paying for the necessary things, sending money where it's supposed to be sent, and then just being, faced with a realistic figure of how much money gets to be left once I've covered the needs. And that worked for me. That worked for me because I was like, oh, okay. So if I were to just be a little bit more financially disciplined, if I were to just have guts to say no to a lunch that I'm being invited to because I can see that my reserves are going down, if I can just have the discipline to say no if I'm being invited for after work drinks, then I can be able to have a clear head in terms of my finances. And yeah, I took that decision to say, okay, going forward, I'm going to be a lot more financially disciplined. Well, I didn't necessarily have to be, because then after COVID, when COVID ended, I was already unemployed. I talk about that story in one of my videos. Please go watch the other episodes prior to this one, because I talk about how I left my job while I wanted to pursue something else, and there was a year in between of complete unemployment. And so this meant that I didn't have money. My girlfriends understood that I couldn't, do lunches for catch-ups and all of that. And so that also just brought a lot of financial clarity, because I was like, okay, this is a financial reset of some sort for me. Once I get back out there, I will deal with my money with a lot more discipline than I used to. And indeed, when I got my articles, again, that was sort of forcing me to be disciplined, because when I got articles, I was earning, peanuts. When you are when you're a candidate attorney at a firm, at a normal firm, not one of the big five, or the big firms, when you are just at a boutique law firm, a lot of us didn't earn a lot of money, but I was still able to cover my needs, pay for my car, pay for my rent, send money home, and that was just about it. And pay for my cell phone. I don't know if I was paying for my cell phone at the time, but I just had enough to cover for my needs. And then I was like, okay, cool. So I can leave with even less money than I was earning in corporate. So when I go back to corporate, I will make sure that I deal with my money with a lot more discipline. And yes, indeed, when I then got my corporate job, again, going back to that idea that when God says, if you can be trusted with small things, you will be given bigger things. I believe that's what happened, because I could be trusted now. When I was doing my articles, I was earning very, I don't want to say very little, because I mean, there's people who earn that money, and it's a good livable income. I was earning something, but then when I went back to corporate, obviously my salary shot up as I wanted it to, thank God. But now when it did, oh, the discipline, Sanalwam. All the discipline, Sanalwam, because that's when I was then able to build at home, which is something that I had wanted to do for a very long time. That I was able to build at home. I was able to pay off my car. And after paying off my car, I didn't rush to the next car date. I'm still not in a car debt to this day, and I'm just taking it easy. I'm taking my time, my sweet time. I want to be strategic with when do I get the car and how do I finance it, so it's the discipline that I've had to just get into my life. I mean, I see other people driving very nice cars, and I'm like, oh, Saba, wow. Oh, Saba, well. And old Boniswa would have already jumped into the car date. Old Boniswa would have already jumped into the car date because she wants to be seen with a new, beautiful, nice car. But no, this new Boniswa is just like, no, I'm choosing to be financially disciplined. I want, by the time that I get my next car, I'm able to just cruise nicely and not feel any pinch of paying for that car. And I think also, I got really, really blessed with my husband, because I think that's another person that I would want to credit for my financial discipline. One, because I use his money instead of mine. I'm kidding. I'm joking. No, I'm joking, guys. But he helped me a lot with financial discipline, honestly, because he is a very financially disciplined person. So I watch him, and I'm able to now also just take better stewardship of my money. And I don't want me to be the weakest link in our marriage when it comes to finances. I don't want to sink our ship. I don't want to be the burden, the person who's when we're trying to build our financial wealth and I'm out here working against that. I don't want that. I just wanted us to be equally yoked when it comes to that. And he's very financially disciplined, so that has helped me a lot as well to be financially disciplined. And as I said, that I am far from where I want to be financially, but I am so glad I'm not where I used to be. And I thank God for all my wake-up calls, and the fact that I understood that they were financial wake-up calls, and I took decisions, I took action after going through the embarrassment that I went through. Because I forgot to actually mention this other embarrassment, that this one day my electricity got cut off. It got cut off, I think it was like 2 days before payday. And my electricity got cut off because I wasn't paying for electricity, because that rental amount I was paying in Pretoria, it wasn't inclusive of electricity. So I still had to pay for electricity separately, and I hadn't been paying for it for about 3 months, and it got cut off. And I had to sit in the dark, and I had to shower with cold water, and it was not a nice experience. It was a not nice position to be in, and it all just pushed me and nudged me towards being a lot more financially disciplined. And yeah, now I am here, and I am a lot more disciplined. I have a very healthy relationship with money. I have a healthy savings culture. I do not ever think I'll want to go back to that position where I was just going with the wind. Wherever the wind went, I went. No, as Bonang says, wherever the wind goes, Mokil, you go. No. I don't want to be that person anymore. And I remember one of the decisions that I took in 2021, just to ensure that I was financially disciplined, was I adopted minimalism. And as much as I'm not practicing as much as I was at the time, but it helped me shape up my life. It helped me to just stay away from consumerism, to just buy everything you're being sold. I got a lot of help through being a minimalist, just only buying the things that were necessary for me to buy, like especially when it comes to clothing, because I think that as a woman, like that can be a big, spending item. Clothing accounts. I don't have no clothing account. I closed my credit card, and I'm just now I'm just now just enjoying money and using what I have instead of using what I don't have, which used to be the case when I had my credit card. I love credit cards. I think they're a great idea. I do have a credit card, but I don't even consider it as a credit card because I don't use the credit money. I just use money that is mine, but through the credit card. I think they are a great idea. Don't get me wrong, but when I was using that one that I got when I started working, it was not an ideal situation because I was using money I didn't have, and I mean, it even got to a point where it was declining. So yeah, I am initiating this conversation on this channel because money and finances and financial growth and financial discipline is one of the things that I want us to talk about. I am going to be bringing some really interesting guests. I'm so excited. I'm going to be bringing in some really interesting guests who are going to just talk to us a lot about having a good relationship with money. What does that mean? What does that even look like? And how do we build a good relationship with money and ensuring that we protect our mental health through being financially disciplined. And that's one of the quotes that literally just moved the needle for me. It was saying, that living below your means is a form of self-love. And I've never been the same again, because now I think about it a lot, all the time. Living below your means is a form of self-love, because when you live below your means, when you afford your lifestyle and you comfortably afford your lifestyle, you have peace of mind. Your mental health is stable in some sort of way. Of course, you may be struggling in other ways, but money is not one of your concerns, and that is that's what it looks like when you take good stewardship of your money. I understand that this topic can be very complex. Of course, we are in South Africa in a very tough economy, and a lot of us are struggling with unemployment and being underpaid and a whole lot of those kinds of things. I understand that it's a very nuanced conversation, but for those of us who do have some sort of income, I encourage you to really look into taking good stewardship of your money, being a bit more disciplined, and understanding that living below your means is a form of self-love. And ladies and gentlemen, that is about today's episode. Catch you on the next one, on episode 7. Please do not forget to subscribe, like, share this episode, and become part of the community, because there's a lot more to come. Thank you.